Hello and welcome. I am Light, and this is my channel. Today I'm going to tell you about a few objects so terrifyingly haunted that you, like most people, would probably never want to own these objects. But at one time, and to this day, people have and do. So, turn your lights down, get cozy, and let's get scared. The first object, the Tallman Bunk Beds. In early February of 1987, Alan and Debbie Tallman bought some bunk beds that they had purchased at a second-hand shop. They assembled the bunk bed, and then they stored it in their basement. Eventually, the Tallmans moved the bunk beds upstairs for their son and daughter. That was in May of 1987. It marked, for them, the beginning of 9 months of horror. From the very first night the bunk beds were slept in, the house appeared to be haunted by spirits that terrorized first the children and then the entire family. The children, who were rarely ill, became terribly sick for no apparent reason. The night that the family moved the bunk beds upstairs, their son, who is known as Danny, but that is not his true identity, was in the room next to it. After his parents said goodnight to him, his clock radio apparently took on a life of its own. It began to turn itself on and off. It changed from channel to channel, and he told his parents that he could see the knobs being turned. His parents did not believe him. But a few weeks later, his father, Alan, was painting the walls in his basement, and he went upstairs for lunch. He placed his paintbrush on a table and then left. And then when he returned, the brush was across the room in the paint bucket with the bristles sticking up. When his youngest daughter was sleeping in the bunk bed, she claimed that she saw a red-eyed witch standing behind her door. She also claimed that she saw fire in her room. A month later, Danny saw the same thing. The family invited their pastor over. He reportedly said that he felt the presence of evil inside the house. The Tallmans continued to be tormented by the entity. Doors would bang open and shut, open and shut. Strange voices would call out of nowhere, and ghostly visions persisted. 1 week before Christmas, Danny again saw something horrifying and told his mother, begged his mother, to leave the house. Frustrated, Alan told the spirits to get out of his house. He then said that if they wanted to fight someone, they could fight him. 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m. on January 7th, 1988, Alan returned home from his late shift. He was outside the garage when he heard an eerie howling sound, and he went to investigate. Then, a voice came out of the howling sound and said, "Come here." He went around the back of the house to see if anyone was there, but there was no one. He then went back to the garage, and he saw that it was on fire. He went inside to get a fire extinguisher, but when he came back out, the fire was gone. In fact, the garage door was undamaged. There were no visible signs of fire. When Alan went back inside, he reached to get his lunch pail that he had set down, and the entity threw it across the room. Alan began sleeping in his daughter's room to provide protection. One night, a fog appeared around him, and a voice came out of the fog that said, "You're dead." Debbie then called the pastor because of what had happened to Alan. A few days later, Alan was working late and asked a relative to watch the girls. His relative was a skeptic until that night, because he saw the same horrible figure that the children had seen, a red-eyed witch. He let out a loud scream. Debbie then told the relative to get the kids together and that they were leaving the house forever. 2 weeks later, the Tallmans had the bunk beds destroyed. Afterwards, the Tallmans had no further paranormal experiences. In April of 1988, another family moved into that house, and they have reported no haunting experiences. Next is the killing chair of Thomas Busby. The killing chair was the favorite chair of Thomas Busby, who was convicted in 1702 for the murder of his father-in-law, Daniel Oddie, whom he had supposedly strangled for sitting in his favorite chair after an argument with Thomas's wife. Now, I've read another version of the story that said that the two were fighting and about the wife, and that Thomas bludgeoned his father-in-law to death. That version says that Thomas went to his favorite pub, sat in his favorite chair, and waited for the men to come find him. When they got there, he wouldn't leave the chair, so they forcefully removed him. This says Oddie's daughter was Elizabeth. On his way to the gallows in 1702, Thomas asked to stop by the pub, and he put a curse on his chair, claiming that anyone who sat in it would be haunted and soon die. It remained in the pub for centuries, and people were often dared to sit in it. During World War II, airmen from a nearby base made the pub a local hotspot, and the chair became a hot seat. People noticed that the ones who sat in it would never come back from war. In 1967, 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat in it, and while driving back, they crashed into a tree and died. A few years later, 2 bricklayers decided to try it, and that afternoon, the one who sat in it fell to his death. The cursed chair has apparently killed every person who sat in it, no matter what. And in that other story I read, they said it's upwards of 63 to 68 people. Some instances include a roofer has sat in it and died after the roof he was working on collapsed. A cleaning woman who tripped, stumbled, and landed in it while mopping, and was later killed by a brain tumor. Eventually, the pub owner moved it into the basement, hoping that nobody would sit in it. However, one day a delivery man was in the basement and he sat in it. 1 hour later, he crashed his truck and died. After that death, the landlord asked the local museum to take it. To ensure that nobody sat in it again, they hung the chair 5 feet from the ground. Although people are now safe from sitting in the chair, new stories still come out about the chair's power. One local was told about a driver who had picked up an airman. The airman asked to go to the bathroom, so they stopped at the Busby Stoop Inn. While waiting, the driver sat in the chair. When the airman didn't return quickly enough, the driver left without him. The angered airman had made his way back to the base, and when he got back, the airman grabbed a building brick and smashed the head in of the driver, killing him. It seemed that because the museum had made it nearly impossible to be able to sit in it, its killing days were over. The museum is still open and functioning, and the chair is in its place. It is said that for some time prior to death, The person who sat in the chair experienced haunting experiences, including extreme itching, paranoia, hearing things, confusion, items being moved, and written warnings on mirrors and walls about the person's imminent death. Next, Valentina's cursed ring. The shopkeeper never wanted to sell the ring. It's cursed, he would say. It's called the Destiny Ring. But for Hollywood actor Rudolph Valentino, who saw the ring in a San Francisco shop, it didn't matter. The simple silver ring with a semi-precious stone was perfect, and he had to have it, so he bought it. Then again, perhaps he should have listened and stayed away from it. It was in the 1920s, and Valentino was a movie star. Born in Italy in 1895, he had left for America and became a sensation in the silent film era. But after purchasing the ring, something went wrong. It all started with the miserable flop of his movie, The Young Rajah. And by the time he made The Son of the Sheik in 1926, he died wearing the ring. At 31 years old, he'd developed an infection after having surgery for bleeding ulcers. An estimated 100,000 people mourned outside of his funeral home after his death. The ring was passed on to his girlfriend, actress Paula Negri, who was a well-known Hollywood actress, who immediately fell ill. When she recovered, her Hollywood career had come to an abrupt end. She decided to pass the ring to young singer Russ Colombo. She thought Russ reminded her of Valentino. Not long after receiving the ring, he died from being shot to death. Then the ring made its way to Colombo's friend Joe Casino. Casino put the ring under glass, but eventually he decided to wear it, resulting in a fatal hit by a truck 1 week later. By this time, the ring's reputation had grown. When Casino's brother Dell inherited it, he locked it away in a safe in his house. Then it was stolen by James Willis, who set off the alarm in the house, and when the police arrived on the scene, they shot and killed him. Inside of his pocket was Valentino's ring, which was recovered and put back in the safe. Director Edward Small retrieved the ring when he became interested in making a movie about Valentino. Edward hired an unknown actor named Jack Dunn to portray Valentino, and he had Jack wear the ring. 2 weeks later, Jack died of a blood disease. Legend has it that the ring now sits in a vault in a Los Angeles bank. Some say it has survived numerous robbery attempts and a fire. Others believe that it's not there at all, and that it's been stolen again. The next is about a painting called The Anguished Man. This is the story as relayed by the owner, Sean Robinson, who sent the story into a website called Your True Tales. This is the backstory. My grandmother had this painting in her attic for 25 years. She said it was evil. She told us she used to see the dark figure of a man around the house, and at night she heard strange noises and crying. She told me the artist committed suicide shortly after finishing this painting, and that he had used his own blood mixed in with the oils to create this man. After she died, we got the painting. It is currently in our basement, Shortly after we got the painting, various members of the family started seeing the dark figure of a man. At night, we began hearing noises, and just recently, we have heard crying and moaning. The painting is still in our house, and although I never believed in the supernatural, I am now convinced that there is something evil about this painting. And he posted a video on YouTube. And I'll tell you what that address is at the end of this. A few weeks later, Sean sent this update. The noises have been getting worse. We have heard crying coming from the corner of our bedroom. We started seeing the dark figure standing at the bottom of the bed, just staring at us. It seems to be a middle-aged man, but his features are not very clear. As a former skeptic, I'm very curious, so I'm moving the painting into our bedroom. Previously, it's been in the cupboard downstairs. I'm feeling apprehensive and a little scared. I'll keep updating. A year later, Sean updated with strange happenings with the painting. I set the camera up once more in the spare bedroom. The painting has been stored away since the last recording. I recorded over 3 nights for approximately 4 hours per night, between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. I recorded the usual banging noises, but on the second night at approximately 3:25 a.m., I recorded the painting suddenly falling over, and immediately afterward a small orb is visible just above the painting. There were no drafts in the room, and the painting was stood at an angle against the wall, so it should not have been able to tip over by itself. I also experienced a strange mist again at the top of the stairs. It was like I was suddenly surrounded by smoke, and I became very cold, but then it just vanished as quickly as it came. 2 years later, here's this update. I have recently temporarily moved in with my parents and obviously took the painting with me. It was only in the house for a few days when the noises started, the same noises I had previously experienced. Then, on the 3rd night, my father fell down the stairs, the same as my son did at the other house. Thankfully, he was unhurt, but I have now moved the painting back into storage. I have been working closely with John Blackburn and Ian Lawman of the Mysteria Paranormal Group, taking the painting to some of the allegedly most haunted locations in the UK. It was on the evening of 18th of May 2013 at Chillingham Castle that a group of people experienced events that were both terrifying and unexplained. None of the guests were prepared for what was about to happen in the early hours of Sunday morning. The room went icy cold when a large, dark figure appeared in the middle of a seance circle. A large wooden bench banged on the floor of its own accord in response to John Blackburn's question about the painting. Then suddenly the bench was flipped upside down violently by what was believed to be John Sage, one of Chillingham Castle's resident powerful spirits, who we think was showing his anger to a foreign, uninvited spirit in his castle. John Blackburn stated that it was the strangest experience in all his 20 years of investigation. If you would like to see some of these videos made by Sean, the first one is Real Haunted Painting - The Anguished Man. Thank you for coming to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please do so. And if you'd like to be notified when my content goes live, I would appreciate that as well. Go ahead and click that bell. And if you would like to share my videos with people you know who have an interest in the paranormal, please do so. And I hope you sleep well tonight. Good night.